Hit the button. OK, merci beaucoup, Marty. Bonjour tout le monde. Je suis Pamela Isfeld, la présidente de la PAS, et je vous souhaite la bienvenue. This is our 59th PAFSO annual general meeting. Very happy to see everyone here today to join us virtually. And we thought we would just get this show on the road as quickly as we can, since the weather is beautiful out there. Before we start, I would just like to note that I am chairing this meeting from the unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe people, and acknowledge and respect them as the past, present, and future guardians and caretakers of these lands. And since I know you are all dialing in from different parts of Canada, some of you, parts of the world, I encourage you to just take a moment and think about the traditional peoples of the lands that you're on, and what this all means for us and for the lives that we lead now today. Marty, could you go to the agenda? So our first order of business is to adopt the agenda. Before we are recording this session, so if you choose to take the microphone at some point, you will be recorded in your comments. So be aware. We're encouraging everyone to use the Q&A button for questions and comments. But if you do wish to speak, you can raise your hand, and we will call on you. But if you put things in the Q&A, that will allow us to go through fairly quickly, and perhaps if there's more than one question on a similar topic, answer them together fairly quickly. C'est une réunion bilingue. Alors, vous pouvez faire des commentaires et poser des questions dans la langue de votre choix. Feel free to do that. We have our deck in both languages. On a un lien dans la boîte de chat pour les documents, pour le AGA en anglais et en français. So, vous pouvez référer à ces documents. OK, premièrement, on va adapter l'agenda. Vous pouvez voir tous les items ici. Et is there someone who would like to move to adopt the agenda? Or first of all, I guess I should ask, are there any amendments or changes, concerns about the agenda? Anything that needs to be added? OK, hearing none, is someone willing to move to adopt the agenda? Allison, I thought I saw your hand there. Are you willing to move? Oh, and I see, and Marcy-Lynn, I see your hand. So maybe you could move. And is someone willing to second? Iris Louise second. So merci beaucoup. Are there any objections? I'll do it this way just to make it go a little bit faster. Are there any objections to the agenda? Okay, hearing none. Marty, the agenda is adopted. Thank you all very much. And Marty, could we move on to the second item? We're presenting the new members of the executive committee. I'd like to welcome Ashley Durek, who's a member at large, and Marc-André Desmarais from FPDS, who came forward during the main nomination process and so are acclaimed into their positions. And I'd also like to thank the outgoing members, Kristen Jansen, Naomi Gilker, Aeneas Charbonneau, and Sarah Tayem, who are leaving XCOM and after one or two in most cases years of great service and great support to the XCOM. So I'd like to thank them all very much for their service, and we'll miss them. I'd also like to thank Gabrielle Bastien, Megan Dalby, Andre Marquis, Alison Poff, William Dunlop, Logan McNamara, Michael Crichton, Tam Ames, Liam Kirkpatrick, and John Gossel, who are all entering the second year of their terms. A number of them have been on XCOM for some time, but this is the second year of this term. So we have one vacant trade position and one vacant international assistance position, and we can take nominations from the floor. So I'm aware of Zach Campbell. I can't see if he's here, who has indicated he wants to stand for the trade position, and Tess Chang, who wants to stand for the IA position. Are there any others who would like to stand for these positions? Going once, twice. I am not seeing anyone. So now is your chance. if you would like to. I will give each of the candidates a chance to speak, and starting with Zach, if he's here, to let everybody know why they would like to join XCOM and what they propose to bring to the table. So Zach, are you there? If so, put up your hand so that we can recognize you.
I don't think he has joined, Pam.
Oh, okay. So is Tess there?
I think you mean Trish Chang.
Oh, Trish, sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. Sorry,
Yeah.
Hi
Trish,
there.
are you
No, it's
there?
okay.
Sorry about
It's
that.
okay. I thought maybe there was somebody else. Can you hear me?
No, I don't mean to scare you. If you would just like to say a little bit about yourself and why you would like to join XCOM.
Sure. Hi, my name is Trish Chang. I'm joining here from Maputo in Mozambique. I started off at CETA, but have been in FS since 2018 or so, but have been part of the international machinery for a long time. Yeah, really interested in kind of joining this kind of small boutique union operation. I'm at a hardship 5 with 2 young kids, so really interested in how we can support families in hardships a little bit better, and really, really interested as well in making sure underrepresented voices within the FS are protected. So yeah, that's why I'm interested in joining, and it sounds like a really great group. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. Is there someone who is willing to move or sorry, first of all, does anyone have any questions for Trish or anything you would like her to elaborate on in her comments? I am not seeing any hands. So is there someone who is willing to nominate Trish?
I can nominate her.
Okay,
Allison.
Allison. Oh, and then Michael.
Yeah.
So Allison nominates Michael. Michael seconds. So thank you very much. Are there any objections to the election of Trish to the executive committee for a two-year term? I am not seeing any. So Trish, congratulations and welcome to the executive committee. I'm just wondering if Zach has arrived. If not, I will read his nomination, his details, and tell you a little bit about him. Zach is an FS2, currently on posting in Buenos Aires with a family, including small kid, and is very interested in looking at issues facing families abroad, and also issues linked to spousal employment and support for families and people accompanying foreign service officers on these postings. He has a labor relations background, and I'm sorry, I think I don't have the the I just can't find the latest document that he sent me. So I'm not sure exactly what his experience is, but I know he does have some labor relations experience in his past, which would be a definite asset to XCOM, and we would welcome adding to our expertise. Um, so I'm sorry he's not here. I know things are difficult sometimes logging in from missions abroad and so on. So um, I I'm sorry that you're not going to be able to ask him any questions, but I guess I will be the one to move that we Zach Campbell as the trade representative in the vacant trade stream position. Does anyone want to object, or is anyone willing to second? Kale seconds the nomination of Zach. So poor Zach is elected in absentia. It's a and will serve for another two-year term on XCOM. So thank you very much, everybody. and that's it. We will. Oh, sorry. First, I guess formally, did we? Yeah, we moved, we seconded. Now we go on to the next thing. So thanks very much. That's that. Now we need to adopt the minutes of the last AGM. Last year's AGM, which are in your package. You can access them through the link in the documents. J'ai pas entendu des commentaires ou des corrections pour ce document, mais si vous avez quelque chose à dire, maintenant c'est le bon moment. If it is something, I mean, we ask that anybody making comments or corrections, obviously that you were at the AGM. And also, if it's something like just a typo or something like that, you can just let us know after and we can just correct it for the record. But if anyone has any substantive amendments or concerns about these items or these minutes, okay, I am seeing none. So is someone willing to move that we adopt the minutes of the last AGM, the 2023 AGM? Oh, I see Lauren Hurst has moved. Thank you very much, Lauren. Is somebody else willing to second? Laura Attar? Okay, thanks, Laura. We have you as seconder. Does anybody have any objections to the minutes? Going once, twice, three times? No? OK, merci beaucoup tout le monde. C'est le compte rendu est adopté. So now we will move on to my report, which I'm actually going to keep quite brief because we're going to have another occasion to discuss our plans and all of our deep thoughts on everything under when we talk about the strategic plan. Plus, you guys get regular updates from me every twice a month. So I think we've been doing a pretty good, reasonable job of keeping everybody in the know about our main issues. So I'm not gonna make this a long or detailed presentation. And I do ask that you hold your questions. You're welcome to type them in the chat or put them in the Q&A box. But we will answer them after Bert's presentation, after the general manager's presentation, because probably there's a fairly good chance that what you don't get from me, you'll get from him in his presentation. So just so we're not repeating ourselves. So some of the highlights of the things that we've been doing and working on since the October 2023 AGM. On advocacy, we've really ramped up. We did our first ever public opinion survey, which was really educational, mainly to get a baseline on what our real level of public support is. And that was very interesting because, anytime we unions get a little bit bullshy, get a little bit, more kind of aggressive in standing up to the employer, we always get this wave of, oh, well, the public doesn't know who you are. The public hates public servants. You don't have any outside support. Don't get too big for your britches. And we actually found that we did have a much higher level of support than we thought. I mean, I was expecting to see numbers, frankly, in the single or maybe even low double digits. And we found that in areas where people, especially where people knew us, we oversampled in our survey in the NCR. We found that our level of support was actually quite high, and assessments of PAFSO's credibility were quite high. So we're going to do another survey in the first half of next year to see if some of the activities that we've been doing, I've been doing more media outreach on, just in general and on issues like MSH, to see if we've managed to move the needle on some of those, and those will give us a very good chance to to figure out where we can target our interventions if we ever get to the point where we're wanting to do labor action or we're doing serious lobbying on a particular issue. We've also done a number of things on the membership engagement front. We did the triennial survey, we did the questionnaire on discrimination and harassment. And we're trying to get, a more kind of granular picture of all of you guys and what your needs are. I mean, in the last 3 years, we have brought in, there are about 400 new members of PAFSO, 80 that just started. I had the pleasure of talking to at their CFSI training a couple weeks ago, which is great. But I mean, that's 20% of our membership. So, and in addition to, the FSIA were only brought on board in 2019. That's a fairly new, like quite a few changes, quite a few new points of view, new perspectives, new set of needs in our membership, and we're working hard to get a handle on how different things affect different people, and use that to inform our planning. We've done some work on psychological well-being. I mean, in particular, the questionnaire on harassment and discrimination showed us some interesting and disturbing things. I mean, even though only about 5% of our members reported harassment or discrimination related to the particular issues we were talking about, a huge number of people replied to the narrative questions and reported just, very serious problems and quite a lot of angst related to, the toxic work culture at both GAC and to a lesser extent at IRCC. So these are things I think we need to start looking at. I am coming to the end of my term as the GAC champion for psychological well-being because I've been in the job for 5 years. So it's it's time to move on. And it's one of the areas, I mean, I don't intend to disengage on the file at all, but it was one of the areas where I feel like I managed to make some progress in terms of bringing some issues to the table, surfacing some things for discussion. But, as we went on, it became more and more clear that really what's necessary is a big culture change, and that is going to take a lot of time. And, in that role, you're kind of always fighting the feeling, the inclination of some people to say like, hey, let's do yoga at lunch, and these are the kinds of things we do to support people's mental health, and that's where it ends. And that was never my approach as champion. I always saw it more as a kind of a policy role and, making space for certain discussions. So I hope that that whoever takes over from me will keep that up, and I will certainly keep that up in my role as PAFSO president and chair of the GAC, in particular, labor management consultative committees. Strategic planning, we have a new proposed strategic plan, and we'll discuss that in detail after the treasurer's report. But that was a very useful exercise for the organization as a whole, looking at, the last plan, figuring out where we made some real progress on things like governance. I think we've now addressed most of the major governance issues that we started off with when we did our strategic review and identified in 2019, 2020. But of course, there's always more that you can do, and it's not a fire and forget thing. You need to keep working on those things. We also did a lot on advocacy. We've hired the advocacy and stakeholder relations officer. We're taking a much more kind of strategic and organized approach to these things. On our representation, preserve and promote issues, we got a new collective agreement. We got a number of things in the collective agreement we've been trying to get for a while. We did a whole bunch of things on the FSDs, making proposals that were long overdue, and actually, work to change the substance and the approach toward the FSDs. And on that, I mean, the cyclical review is ongoing and it's making good progress, but we are on a tight timeline. We are probably going to, especially if there might be an election, need to look at wrapping up before the end of the year. And we may have some tough decisions to bring to you guys about, okay, we've made good progress on some things. We have not managed to address other things. Do we take what we've got and make sure that we can preserve what we've got when we know that, we might have different leadership in government that would approach the FSDs a different way and perhaps want to really slash them? or do we keep fighting, and try to get those aspirational things? You might have a hint from the way I'm phrasing this of what my position is likely to be, but we will definitely be coming back to consult on all of that. The whole MSH fiasco and the health insurance abroad, you've heard a lot from me on that. And just a quick update, we are going to be filing our writ of mandamus to compel the government to accept responsibility for this mess tomorrow. So you'll see some media from us on that and some more discussion of that. But it's not a fight we're going to give up. I think it's terribly important in and of itself, but it is also symptomatic of a bigger problem, which is the government offloading a lot of things to contractors and then trying to wash its hands of responsibility. I mean, the worst issue was Phoenix. That's the biggest one. And, they're saying now that it's still going to take another 10 to 12 years before a Phoenix replacement is in place. And people can expect real pay stability, and that's just not good enough. And, we see it with all of our moves. I mean, I watch the Facebook group and I see people talking about, problems with the movers and, movers showing up in their house who are obviously unvetted and, sometimes even aggressive and break people's things. And again, it's a contract. And so people are told, oh, well, go to the moving company. I'm like, no, that is not good enough. I mean, this is a health and safety issue. When you're moving, being told by the employer that you need to move, my position is that your house is your workplace for the day that you're moving, and they need to protect your health and safety. So, these are the kinds of things that we're going to be following up on. And this MSH thing really symbolizes a lot of the issues that are going on and that we want to take a stand on to see if we can stop it from continuing. So the other thing we're tracking is, now it looks like we were expecting an election in fall 2025, which was already, bringing some things we have to track. We are seeing an uptick in TBS activities in preparation for a possible earlier election than that. They're wanting to revamp the guidance on use of social media for public servants. There's all of this stuff on values and ethics and so on that, some of it seems very targeted. It seems like they're things that they want to put in place because they're worried about how the public service will behave or be perceived to behave in an election campaign. And, those are things to be concerned about, but we can't let them do things to us that put things in place that we're going to have to live with, for decades because they're worried about a short-term problem. So we're on top of all of those things. And the bottom line up front really is that there are challenges on all these fronts to both the membership, the Foreign Service community, to PAFSO as an organization as well. But as an organization, we are in a very strong position. Allison will tell you more about our finance position. We've got a strong strategic plan that gives us some guidance. We've got a very good staff and very good leadership from Bert. And so I think that we're in good shape. Marty, can I have the next slide? Coming up on our plans for next year, we are going to be celebrating the 60th anniversary of PAFSO as a professional association. Like the other professional associations, we got we formed as an association in 1965, and we got our bargaining ticket to act as a union and negotiate collective agreements 2 years later. But we're going to be celebrating PAFSO 60. We're going to be having a reception on the 4th of June, where we will be giving out an award to a professional award to an FS, a deserving Foreign Service officer. They don't want me to say that this is going to be a permanent thing and we're relaunching what used to be the FS Awards, but I'm hoping that that's what will happen. We're also going to publish a book. The working title is Dip Notes on Canada's Foreign Service officers using articles from Buddha Papier best articles from Bout de Papier, and along with essays to talking about our current lives, to answer those questions that we all get. What does a Foreign Service officer do? What does it mean to be a Foreign Service officer? What's good? What's bad? What's the life like? So we're going to be putting that together over the next year, and my goal is that we have that for the next AGM, and failing that, at least for sure for the end of the year for PASO 60. We're also going to be doing some more work on our advocacy. We've been doing more outreach to parliamentarians. We're just starting to ramp that up, and we'll be doing more. We'll have our ongoing concerns about the Foreign Service directives, possible budget cuts, and also health and safety at work. And that is a big, the health and safety file is a huge file. All of this is really to préparer le terrain pour la négociation de notre prochaine convention collective, qui va expirer en juin 2026. So, we already had that on the agenda, but if we're going to be doing that in an environment with perhaps a different government, we will really want to have our ducks in a row, and we're going to want to be making some decisions about things like, are we going to want to continue with the current system of having the Foreign Service directives, buying into the Foreign Service directives through the NJC, or will we want to perhaps strike out on our own and see if we can negotiate something directly with Treasury Board and GAC that would be in our collective agreement? So these are all things that we're going to be looking at over the next year or so. Okay, so I'm looking out for your questions. I'll keep an eye on them, but I'm going to turn over the floor to Bertrand. It's pour donner son parole comme qu'est-ce que c'est? How do I say it? General Manager, Directeur Exécutif?
Directeur Général.
Okay.
Yes.
Thanks,
Merci,
Bert.
Pam. Bon après-midi, tout le monde. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Bertrand Mir, but I'm also known as Bert, as you've heard. I'm the general manager of PAFSO. Essentially, as general manager, my role is to look at the daily operation of our office, which essentially provides direct services to all of you, whether it's through union dues, event coordination, communication, finance, or labor relation. That's the responsibility of the office, and I'm the one who oversees the daily operation of the office. Every year I do this presentation. It's roughly about 5 minutes. I'll try to make it brief because most of the points have been raised by Pam. I will, however, go into a little bit more details on some of the issues that we've faced the last year. So, pour ceux et celles qui veulent poser des questions, sentez-vous libre de les poser dans la langue de votre choix. Ma présentation, elle va être dans les 2 langues officielles. So I will switch from English to French, and my slides are kind of divided that way. So, Marty, I'll ask you to... Marty, you kind of read my mind there. So essentially in 2024, if we look at, some of the main issues we've dealt with, as Pam pointed out, last July, we went through the transition of the Public Service Self-Care Plan, which basically switched from Sun Life to Canada Life. And unfortunately, as Pam mentioned, this became a fiasco really quickly, which unfortunately, especially for those working abroad who are being serviced by MSH International, this is roughly a nightmare to deal with because of the inability of MSH to process claims within a reasonable delay. And unfortunately, this is having a significant impact on the physical and mental health of our members and their well-being, both the members and also their dependent. The office currently has several emails per day pertaining to MSH, and it continues to be a struggle, and I'll share more information later on in my presentation. Now, another issue is although the employer's new directive on on-site presence does not necessarily affect the majority of our members, we have heard from several of you about lack of suitable workstation, particularly at GAC where several renovation projects are on the way. So we've kind of also received a lot of emails on this. Another major issue that we are facing or that we faced in 2024 continues to be an area which is related to the Phoenix Pay system, whereas several members have contacted the office about overpayment situations. In many cases, the situation has been left outstanding for several years, and that continues to be a major issue for us. And as Pam pointed out, 2024 is also a busy year in terms of FSDs. While the FSD cyclical review progress is progressing, as Pam mentioned, there is still, unfortunately, a large number of proposals that remains to be discussed, but we continue to be optimistic and hope that an agreement will be reached by mid-November, if knock on wood. Next slide, Marty, please. Au cours de l'année 2024, le secrétariat a procédé à plusieurs changements au niveau technologique. Tout ça dans le but d'améliorer le service direct aux membres. Si vous avez assisté à l'Assemblée générale annuelle l'an passé, vous avez appris qu'on avait développé un nouveau site Internet dans lequel les membres pouvaient communiquer de façon plus efficace directement avec le secrétariat. Nous avons créé un nouveau site également pour bout de papier pour lesquels les membres peuvent avoir accès aux différents articles du magazine directement en ligne ou encore télécharger les numéros en format PDF. Nous avons également fait la migration de notre base de données sur ce qu'on appelle l'info nuage, donc le cloud, pour un accès direct des employés. Et plus important, une vérification plus adéquate des cotisations syndicales. Le but de la migration de la base de données était vraiment de permettre à la PAS de pouvoir au moins essayer d'assurer un certain suivi au niveau des cotisations syndicales avec l'équipe de Matane pour s'assurer que les gens payent des cotisations syndicales au bon syndicat. Nous avons également créé une archive numérique des articles de bout de papier en lien avec notre stratégie et de créer le magazine principalement numérique. C'est ce que nous visons dans le futur. Et nous avons également fait une mise à niveau, update, comme on dit, de nos systèmes de sécurité informatique, ainsi que le développement d'une gestion de risque en cas de cyberincident. Next slide, Marty. Consultation with members. It has been a busy year in terms of consultation with our membership on a variety of issues. As Pam mentioned, starting with our triannual survey. The 2024 triannual survey explored topics from advocacy to communications to labor relations in order to inform us to get information to build a better organization, more focus on our service to the members. The survey was launched on May 13th and closed on June 9th for a total of 28 days in the field. We have received 639 completed response for a response rate of 30.3%, which is an increase from the 2021 survey when 415 members completed the survey. The top issue mentioned in the final comments in the survey were, well, the Canada Life MSH debacle, FSDs is an important issue for our members. Telework and where we stood on the return to the office or return to the workplace directive. Support for non-traditional family structures. Support for spouse and employment abroad. Mental health was a big issue, and greater collaboration or facilitating mentorship between senior and junior FSs. So that's what we've retained in terms of the priorities for our members. Next slide, Marty, please. Early in the year, we also distributed a questionnaire on workplace harassment and discrimination within the context of world events, for which 317 members responded, so roughly 17.7% of the total membership. The key takeaways that we got from the questionnaire was 6% of the respondent reported having experienced discrimination. 4% reported having experienced harassment. Many felt that nothing could be done or that there would be impact on their career or their privacy should they have addressed the situation. That was certainly a concerning point for our office, and most respondents were unaware of how PAFSO, the office, could help in such situation. So in light of the survey response, the LRA team and I hosted a special edition of a PAFSO breakfast. We held an information session where we talked about how PAFSO can engage on a wide variety of issues, such as workplace harassment and also discrimination. So this is what we've done as a result of the survey. And we are certainly encouraging people that are experiencing harassment or discrimination in the workplace to communicate with the office. Next slide, Marty, please. Now, in terms of labor relations, as I mentioned, the continuing saga of the health insurance abroad is right now our biggest challenge. Almost immediately following the transition to Canada Life, our members and their families, both at home and abroad, began to experience significant issues related to the processing of their insurance claim. PAFSO office is receiving several emails per day from members who are voluntarily sharing their experience, particularly with MSH International. Now, it is important to understand that PAFSO does have a limited scope of intervention on an individual basis when it comes to obviously negotiating the public service healthcare plan. However, both the advocacy and the labor relation team have been working together to explore different options to address some of the issues experienced by members. And here's what we've done so far. Next slide, Marty. Despite our limitation, on April 10, 2024, we have filed a policy grievance against Treasury Board for the way the transition from Sun Life to Canada Life was managed. The grievance highlights the dysfunction of the plan, particularly for those serving abroad, and it outlines the additional stresses that are caused by the unreasonable delays in claim processing. Now, subsequently, following the policy grievance, we also filed a human rights complaint against MSH International, highlighting how their administrative practices are adversely affecting members, right, based on their disability. PAFSO is alleging that MSH method of implementing the public service healthcare plan and its actions disregarded the need and circumstances of plan members and made insufficient and untimely accommodation for their needs. So essentially, we are going after MSH on the basis that they are essentially discriminating against our members based on their disability. As Pam mentioned, next step, PAFSO is now working on a mandamus application, which will be filed tomorrow. And this is to compel the Government of Canada to fulfill its duty in a timely manner. The legal duty Treasury Board has to PAFSO members is to provide a healthcare plan that includes timely processing of claims. Next slide, Marty, please. Le secrétariat a également reçu plusieurs cas de recouvrement, en grande partie causés par Phoenix, malgré les ratés du système de paye, les montants trop perçus au titre de salaire et autres sommes d'indemnités payables à la couronne doivent être remboursés selon les dispositions de la convention collective. Il est important de comprendre que lorsqu'un trop perçu, essentiellement, nos actions se limitent à ce qui est décrit dans la convention collective. Et ce qu'on retrouve dans la convention collective, dans des cas de trop perçus, dans des cas de recouvrement, c'est essentiellement de trouver une entente entre l'employé et l'employeur à raison de peut-être 10% du montant global qui peut être perçu à même le salaire. C'est la limite que nous, PAFSO, on a lorsqu'on fait affaire avec des situations de recouvrement. Par contre, la PAFSO a été le premier syndicat à déposer des griefs pour des dossiers dont la créance dépassait le nombre d'années permises sous la loi sur la responsabilité civile de l'État et le contentieux administratif. En anglais, c'est Crown Liability and Proceeding Act, qui limite essentiellement qu'aucun trop perçu datant de plus de 6 ans peut procéder. Après plusieurs mois de débat dans le processus interne de règlement de grief, le Conseil du Trésor a finalement reconnu que les montants en suffrage datant de plus de 6 ans ne pouvaient dorénavant faire l'objet d'un recouvrement. Donc, la vaste majorité des griefs portant sur le recouvrement des trop perçus datant de plus de 6 ans, et ça c'est important, les dossiers doivent être plus que 6 ans, ont été favorablement réglés avant l'audience d'arbitrage. En conséquence, les ministères maintenant doivent exercer une diligence raisonnable des paiements en trop. Next slide, Marty. FSD cyclical review process. This is by all means one of the most important issue that we have this year, and certainly probably the most important for all of you. The cyclical review process began in April of 2023 when we've surveyed our members to identify priorities for the next round. In total, we had received 581 response. Now, more than 400 proposals were tabled by both parties, which is something unheard of. But unfortunately, the cyclical review process started on a somewhat bad note as we were facing several preliminary challenges resulting from the NJC's position that any new proposal could not be submitted. That's a curveball that the NJC kind of threw at us. It was only in March 2024 that these preliminary matters were resolved and the actual negotiations began. Both parties agreed to meet twice a week for the duration of the review process. In September, the FSD committee increased the numbers of meetings by adding 1/2 day per week. Both parties are aiming to complete the review process by mid-November. Even in the best case scenario, if we do get an agreement at the table by mid-November, it is important to understand that the new FSD's provisions will not be implemented before April 1st, 2025 as the tentative agreement. It's not a tentative agreement, by the way, folks. Sorry, that was a mischaracterization of the language. As the new deal will have to be approved by the NGC committee, executive committee. So it's not until April 1st, 2025 that the new agreed provisions will take effect. Dossier devant la Commission des relations de travail. Il y a présentement 3 dossiers de grief devant la Commission des relations de travail, dont 2 qui portent sur des questions de droits de la personne, puisque l'employeur a failli à son devoir d'accommodation. Et quelle coïncidence, un de ces dossiers vient d'être réglé ce matin, donc pour lequel il y a eu une entente et la membre en question est très satisfaite. Le 3e dossier porte sur une question d'interprétation de la DSE 50, contestant la décision unilatérale de l'employeur d'approuver les demandes d'aide au déplacement en fonction des risques associés à la COVID-19. Ce dossier-là a été présenté. Les arguments vont se faire par voie écrite, donc on risque d'avoir une décision là, de la commission là, pas avant, probablement là, dans les premiers mois du mois de l'année 2025. Il y a également 2 autres dossiers de grief dont l'audition d'arbitrage est prévue, un pour le mois de janvier 2025 et l'autre pour le mois de mars 2025. Next slide, Marty. We did also work on member outreach. As some of you may know, Tradecraft Week. PAFSO had his 3rd installment of Tradecraft Week from May 28th to June 4th, with this year's theme being your first posting. For this event, seasoned officers were asked to share with their newest colleagues their knowledge and experience of their first time at post. It was a success. The following week, on June 11th, PAFSO hosted its 2nd annual Springtime 5 à 7. Some of you may also use the word mixer, but we prefer to use the word 5 à 7. About 40 members showed up to gather and for a wonderful evening of drinks and snacks. And I was there, Marty was there, Pam was there, and a lot of people probably on the line were there. It was certainly a fun event. With the return to the workplace directive, departments, both GAC and IRCC, have now reinstated the orientation session for new employees. This is once again giving us a chance to meet the new FS recruits. The IRCC orientation session was held on January 19th, where 10 new members attended. And for GAC, as Pam mentioned, the orientation session was held on October 9th, in which surprisingly 80 new FSs were also joining us at this event. Next slide, Marty. So in conclusion, all of PAFSO's major achievement this year would have not been possible without the hard work and the dedication of a very competent staff. As general manager, I'm extremely appreciative of our team. I'm grateful to be able to rely on such professional and hardworking group of individuals. And I do understand sometimes when you reach out to people, you may not always be satisfied with the response that you get. But trust me, folks, these colleagues, this team is working extremely hard to provide you all the best possible service. So if you do have any issues, feel free to reach out to us. You can always send me an email or give me a call, and I will respond to, your issues the best way I can. Thank you all. So if there's any questions, feel free to ask.
Thank you, Bert. And yes, I also would like to thank you and the PAFSO staff. They're very dedicated, and most of them have been with us for quite a long time. They know a lot about the organization, the history, the issues that we face. And so I encourage you to, if you're facing difficult issues at work, to consider to reach out. I mean, sometimes there are things where there's not a lot we can do in sort of technical terms because they may be issues that are, within the employer's prerogative, are not covered by one of our hard instruments in the collective agreement or some other mechanism. But these are experienced people who've seen a lot around the workplace, and they can probably give you some advice, even if they're not able to advise on going to a grievance or something formal. So we encourage you to take advantage of that. Rachel says somebody is asking, is it too late to share feedback on the FSDs for the cyclical review? I'm afraid, unfortunately, it is. Our proposals were sealed last July, I believe it was. It was the negotiations are ongoing, and we can't add new items now. I mean, you can always tell us what you would like to see, and we can keep it in mind for next round. Or there may be a way of in the discussion, the negotiation back and forth on one of the proposals that we have made, there may be an issue of addressing to a certain extent some of your concerns. But in terms of formal input or new provisions, the window for input is unfortunately past. We did share the full draft of our proposals with members over last summer, and we got quite a lot of feedback on our specifics that changed the proposals quite a bit. So I encourage everybody to have a look. I think we've got a pretty comprehensive set of requests. But Rachel, did you want to raise something that that you would like us to look at? I'm not seeing typing there. Anybody else? Any other questions or comments before we go on to the treasurer's report? I'm okay. So I will hand over to the next item, which is Allison, to do the treasurer's report, which we wanted to do before the okay. So I can unmute regarding relocation. We'll send an email. Okay. Thanks very much. We'll watch out for that email. Allison, are you there and ready to go ahead? Vas-y.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I will apologize. I'm not going to turn my camera on as I'm on leave, and I'm trying to do this off a phone and an iPad, so you would just be looking at a ceiling fan if I turn my camera on. So we'll go ahead and get started. Alors, tout le monde a reçu les documents en avant. Alors, je vais commencer avec le rapport sur l'adhésion. Alors, comme vous voyez dans le rapport, on a eu entre 2023 et 2024, il y avait à peu près une trentaine de nouveaux membres. Ça, c'est pas le fait. Les uns qui viennent de nous joindre, ça va prendre quelques mois avant qu'on voit les numéros dans notre système. So growth is higher than what you're seeing, but it always takes a few months from when somebody becomes an FS until it catches up till we get the information at the office. So that would be our membership report. I'll then go on to the draft audited financial statements. So you would have had a chance to review that. So as you can see, we still have ended up in a positive financial situation at the end of the year. I'll highlight again, like I've done for the last few years, we are always modest when we do our budgets because we're still not clear as to the total number of members that we have. So we always put it at less just in case something happens. So you'll see that we are still very much in positive cash flow situation, and we will continue to grow the Job Reserve Action Fund. So nothing outstanding or large questions came out of the audited financial report. The happy with how everything was done. And then finally, the last item we're going to cover is the proposed 2025 budget. So again, the membership dues, we've gone lower than anticipated, just in case the numbers fluctuate a little bit. I think the biggest change you'll see to this year's is that we have here it's listed as FS Awards Night, but that is really the 60th anniversary event that we're going to be hosting, which I will now put in a solicitation for volunteers. If you wish to help out with that event, please let Marty or myself know, and we will find a job for you for that. Other than that, the other thing we are looking at reducing over the next year or two is our office rent. So we will be exploring the ability to move to a smaller office location to reduce that size, given that our contract was signed pre-COVID. Obviously, everybody recognizes that was a different working environment. And so now that our contract is coming up for renewal, we'll be exploring the possibility of moving into a smaller office space, hopefully in the same building, but we'll see what comes out of that. So before I make any motions, are there any questions? I don't see any hands, so I will make a motion to adopt the audited 2023 financial statement. If somebody could second. Thank you, Sean. Okay. And then I will make a motion to adopt the 2025 budget. If somebody could second. Thank you, Michael. So short and sweet, again, if anybody has any questions, if they hadn't had time to look into this to detail and have questions later on, just let me know and I'm happy to explain everything to you. And I will turn it back over to Pam.
Thanks, Allison. That was short and painless. So we wanted to make sure that you guys got the financial picture, understood the financial picture before we present you with the strategic plan, just so that everybody knows, everybody knows what our resources are like as we go into these things. So this plan that'll take us from 2025 to 2028 is only our second plan in our organization's history. And it builds on the one that we had in place from 2020 to 2023. This year we were doing an evaluation of that plan and starting the new one. And we learned a few things, as we did in the process of the first plan. And one of them was that it is extremely useful to have a plan with some guiding principles, just so that we, when XCOM is exercising its delegated authority in the Constitution to make decisions about the direction of the organization, use of members' resources, and so on, we do have some guiding principles and priorities that we can refer back to, and that just makes everybody's life easier to know that we have that structure to operate within. The other lesson that we learned was that you don't, at our level of an organization, a lot of us were coming into the idea of strategic planning from, say, our divisions, where we or our embassies abroad, where we were a section or we were, an operational division, and we were making a plan for ourselves. Well, those are really operational or tactical plans, right? Those are not really strategic plans. The strategic plan for us, for global affairs, is the government plan. It's Canadian foreign policy. It's those broad kinds of things. So we found that it was useful to sort of dial things back. We will, as part of this plan that we're proposing to you, develop the operational and tactical level planning as we get into the various activities. But what we're asking for now is for you to approve those overarching directions. And one of our overarching goals really is to shift our organizational culture as PAFSO from a rights-based service model, where you kind of show up, like on, the Peanuts comics, it's like, the Lucy is there and, the doctor is in, and you ask the doctor, okay, this is my problem. And the doctor says, well, I can help you, or I can't, or go here, go there, do that, whatever. We want to try to shift to one that's based less on enforcing and policing the collective agreement in these documents, although that will always be a part of our activities. More on the idea of identifying our overarching shared interests and advocating for the professions writ large and for the Foreign Service community writ large. And that would also imply that there would be a higher level of engagement on the part of members and a higher level of input from members between elections of the president, elections of the ExCom, more consultation, more flexibility on what we want to do, and more of a sort of a way of looking at things that says, well, okay, we can't necessarily do this specific thing that somebody has indicated they would like, but how is there a way that we can we identify the underlying interest or concern, and how could we go about addressing that? And it might be in a way that, nobody thinks of, because people are looking at things from different angles, and maybe we could address some of this through advocacy, or maybe we could address it through a different approach on a particular FSD or things like that. I mean, we're dealing a lot with more and more complex issues, like, for example, this health insurance abroad issue, and we really need to have a flexible approach with that overarching strategic guidance. The other thing that we didn't do, I mean, we did a number of consultations, half a dozen, 6 or 7, I believe, I think 7 altogether with members. We did a questionnaire, we did the triennial survey, ExCom met 5 times, I believe, to go over different elements of the plan. The one thing that we did not do, we decided that we were not going to do this time, is we did not do a full external evaluation. We just did an internal evaluation, which is also a legitimate approach, but we agreed to present to you as part of this plan that there will be a full external evaluation when we complete this plan at the end of 2028, when the plan is done. In 2029, there will be a full external evaluation of our planning and our mechanisms of foresight and our commitments and so on. And that will be 10 years after we first launched the idea that, the organization should have a strategic plan. So can I have the next slide? So on veut adopter les priorités et orientations sur page 4 du 6 du rapport. That's in your package. These are just the summary items that sum up the numéro 1, protéger et représenter, which is the, comprises negotiating the next collective agreement, representing members at work on labor relations issues, workplace issues, protecting health and safety, all those different kinds of things. That's the sort of hardcore labor relations aspect. And then number 2, our advocacy and engagement pillar. We want to continue to work in strategic and targeted ways to ensure that PAFSO is visible to the public, the media, and decision makers, on issues that are important to the professional foreign service, and that they understand the full value of the profession and our contributions to Canada and Canadians. The 60th anniversary celebrations are going to be a good opportunity to highlight and publicize all of that outside some of our traditional circles in order to maximize public support. And all of this is going to become, very important if we have a change in leadership and a change in the atmosphere toward the public service. And then, we want to continue. We need to continue to address our governance piece, govern and operate. We want to make sure that we're maintaining best practices, that we're up to date in terms of our governance, that we speak with a strong and unified voice, that we reflect the diversity of our membership. And we're going to do some work on our own training for executive committee on diversity and inclusion issues. That was something that came up in the questionnaire and in the triennial survey that, we've made some progress on that, but that we can do more on that to make sure that we're getting everybody, that we're understanding, how things are affected. Like, for example, the questionnaire on harassment, 6% of the members answered yes to the question, but when you drill down and you looked at visible minority women, for example, it rose to 14%. And, that's a significant amount. We need to understand more and better how different things affect different parts of the membership. Est-ce qu'il y a des questions, des points à discuter? Maintenant, c'est le moment pour poser des questions. Sinon, je vais faire une proposition d'adopter les grandes lignes comme ça. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Kale says it's a little outside conventional advocacy, but would the advocate and engage portion potentially include things like reaching out to financial institutions or CRA to find workarounds for things like authentication requirements? So yeah, I mean those are the kinds of things we would like to look at. But I feel like we need to sort of lay the groundwork on some of this. To be able to get a hearing, from some of these places. So yes, definitely we would like to be in a position to intervene on those things. Also to intervene on legislation. I mean, one of the problems that we're seeing is that there's legislation that's passed that affects us, and nobody even thinks of asking us about it. So we need to change that, and we need to put some resources and some concerted effort toward that. Xavier, est-ce que vous avez une intervention? Est-ce que vous voulez? OK, allons-y.
All right. Hi, folks. Hi, Pam. Thanks. It's maybe to start a discussion about the strategic planning, especially something that I came to realize while joining the FS group. So for the folks that don't know me, hi, I'm Xavier. I'm an FS1 with IRCC. I've joined about a year ago. I am at post and I'm seeing firsthand the reality of all the posts on Facebook. Although everybody is experiencing something different, some issues are common to each other. Comme association professionnelle, la PAS nous représente très bien sur tout ce qui est les relations de travail, les relations avec l'employeur. Mais aussi, comme association professionnelle, je pense que la PAS pourrait aussi nous aider dans ce qui a trait aux conditions de vie de nous, les membres, par rapport aux situations particulières qui viennent justement avec le fait d'être diplomate. Après avoir lu le plan et entendu le plan stratégique, je me demande s'il pourrait être pertinent pour la PAS de se renseigner sur la possibilité d'obtenir des rabais, voire mettre sur retainer des services légaux que nous, les membres, avons besoin. Je pense à des spécialistes fiscaux, des comptables, des avocats en droit de la famille, etc. Je suis arrivé à cette conclusion-là en regardant tous les posts qu'on voyait sur les problèmes avec les évictions des personnes qui avaient pu quitter les logements quand on devait revenir, les problèmes familiaux, les problèmes comptables, etc. Et chaque fois, c'était du bouche-à-oreille, des personnes qui se faisaient référer. Donc, je me demandais s'il pourrait être une possibilité pour la PAS d'explorer le fait d'obtenir pour les membres des rabais avec certaines firmes légales. Donc, je lance l'idée comme ça.
Oui, c'est quelque chose qu'on peut poursuivre. Pour les questions comme ça, de temps en temps, il y a une question des mandats légaux pour sometimes there are areas where we as PAFSO have we can intervene to a certain extent, but we have to also be careful in terms of the organization, like our own authority, our own limits as a professional organization and as a union, and what our legal liabilities could be in giving directly certain kinds of advice. But for something like that, I mean, if in terms of identifying, some service providers who might be able to give advice to people for a discount or making those kinds of arrangements. I mean, we could certainly look at that, and I'll take that on board, and we can look at exploring that further. I think it fits, within our pillars there, our general direction. So something we could look at. Bert, est-ce que vous avez des commentaires sur ça?
Oui, écoute, Xavier, c'est une question assez délicate, mais je pense à la fois très pertinente qui emmènerait une bonne réflexion de la part de la PAS, c'est sûr et certain. À savoir s'il y a quelque chose qu'on peut faire pour vous mettre en contact, pour peut-être vous donner certaines ressources, que ce soit des ressources financières ou une certaine expertise, là, lorsque vous faites face à certaines problématiques qui peut-être à l'extérieur de votre situation d'emploi, là, de votre relation employeur-employé. C'est ce que je comprends là, de votre question. Il y a certainement des choses qu'on pourrait faire. On va l'explorer, c'est sûr et certain. Il faut toujours comprendre, par contre, qu'il y a certaines limites là, du type de service et du type de ressources qu'on peut donner. Mais je pense que si, dans certaines situations, oui, je pense que la PAS peut jouer un rôle beaucoup plus proactif, beaucoup plus direct par rapport à ce qui peut être offert. Et ça l'encadre là, ce que Pam mentionne au niveau d'une direction plus de défense des intérêts, là. Tu sais, le advocacy, parce qu'en français, c'est défense des intérêts. Donc, je pense que c'est là qu'on s'oriente comme organisation. C'est sûr et certain que nous, on a toujours pris dans notre historique là, une approche qui était non politisée pour différentes raisons. Donc, ça peut être un peu plus difficile. Mais pour ce qui est des contraintes que certains de nos membres vivent lorsqu'ils vont à l'étranger, ça peut faire partie effectivement d'un étendu ou d'un service plus vaste qu'on peut offrir. Je pense que c'est quelque chose vraiment là, qui mérite certaines réflexions, définitivement. Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Bert. Oui, par exemple, on avait une item dans notre ancien plan stratégique qui a dit on va chercher un mécanisme pour donner comme le conseil psychologique, je ne sais pas comment on dit en français, peer-to-peer. Could we do something where we could set up a peer-to-peer network for people to help each other, peer support for mental health? And we mentioned that to our lawyers, and they were like, no, you cannot do that as PASO. You don't have the expertise in-house. You don't have the mandate. Like, what if, you were speaking to somebody who had severe mental health problems and you didn't identify it and something really went wrong. It was too much of a risk for the organization. But what you're proposing, that we identify some service providers and that we, kind of offer a connection that way. I think absolutely we could look at that. And, there may be other things as well. So I think that's a really good idea that fits with what we're looking at. Oh, Bert, go ahead.
Et juste là, finalement, là, il ne faut pas oublier, lorsque vous êtes à l'étranger, vous travaillez pour le gouvernement du Canada, l'employeur est toujours responsable de vous, là. Donc, l'employeur ne peut pas simplement juste se laver les mains et dire c'est votre problème personnel. Il y a toujours une part de responsabilité du côté de l'employeur. Et je pense que ça, nous, à la PAS, on peut jouer un rôle beaucoup plus actif de demander à l'employeur de vraiment prendre ses responsabilités lorsque les membres ont un problème quelconque qui n'est peut-être pas relié à l'emploi. Donc, c'est quelque chose que nous allons définitivement réfléchir. Définitivement.
Oui. C'est semblable à la question sur le MSH, oui.
Ouais.
C'est où ils ont dit, OK, c'est pas dans la convention collective, c'est quelque chose entre l'employé et l'entreprise, et c'est ça. Et on dit non. You are the employer. You are responsible for making sure people have this provision. You tell people that they're going to have this when they go out on posting. You cannot just wash your hands and say, well, it's really too bad if you're having that kind of problem when you're overseas. And I think that applies in a number of areas as well. And we could be like, we could be more, I think, more targeted and a little bit more aggressive. I don't know if that's the word we want to use, but a little bit more active in holding them to account on some of those things. So thank you. That's a good point. I am not seeing. Oh, sorry. I see somebody's saying something in the chat. Yeah. Oh. Why did we decide to do an internal review instead of an external review after the first strategic plan? We reviewed our main pillars and we decided that they were still valid. And it was also, I have to admit, it was a question of time and resources. We were in the middle, was coming at the same time as we were negotiating the collective agreement. And we just decided that there were probably not going to be, there wasn't a big enough kind of a call for change that it would really be worth the money at this point, because it's very expensive to do that. And most organizations do that every 8 to 12 years, not, every 3 years, because we did have a full, when we set up the plan, we had a full evaluation we engaged Korn Ferry to do a full assessment of where we were at and what we needed to do. And we just felt that it was not a sort of big enough issue to justify that kind of expense and that kind of expenditure also of staff resources and time at that moment. So we decided to hold off till the end of this plan, when we will have a little bit more of a track record and more experience as an organization in doing these things, and an assessment would mean a little bit more. Like we knew, the things that we did wrong, we were able to, I think, identify them quite quickly. And I don't think we would have heard too much different from a high-powered consulting company, but we will definitely do it the next time around. Anyone else? So please don't get distracted from being the steward of our collective agreement and members only intervener to deal with GAC on FSD issues. Absolutely not. No, that is absolutely not that going to happen. I don't think. I mean, the part of the problem though is that some of the reasons we have these smaller issues, these issues keep coming up, is because we could be laying better groundwork in terms of our image, our public support, our support in Parliament. I mean, problems keep coming up because we kind of get forgotten and pushed aside on some things. Even with the NJC, when they did their first letter on the public service healthcare plan complaining about Canada Life, I asked them to include a line on MSH and they were like, oh no, well, we negotiated this whole letter. We totally forgot about that. So we can't include it in the first letter. So the president of PIPS and I did one together, but we need to we need to build up our goodwill and our connections before we need to use them, like plant our garden and have our trees growing before we need to go and get the apples. And hopefully that will help us in the major situations. Also, someone's asking, and understanding the context and environment may differ. Have you also compared your strategic plan with that of your counterpart unions in USA, UK, France, Australia? Yes, that was part of our evaluation process, but the contexts are extremely different. Like AFSA represents all of the foreign service people in the US, including their executive equivalents, HOMs, and so on. And also they're, 20 times our size, right? So their strategic plan is a little bit different. It's even more high level than ours. The UK, there's actually a couple of unions that represent diplomats, and both of them are huge unions, like PSAC size. And so they are a very sort of small sub-working group of those. But yeah, we're facing a lot of the same issues as those other unions. And reaching out to them and making more of those connections is also something that I would personally like to do over the next little while to get an even better understanding. If we don't have any other questions, I will make a motion that we adopt the priorities and directions that are on page 4 to 6 of the plan. And is somebody willing to second? Carl
I can
Pilon, is that
second.
you wanting to talk or willing to second? Sorry, Carl, I had you
I'm typing
first.
up a question, but I can verbalize it. It might be easier.
Okay, sure, go ahead. Okay, sure, go ahead.
Okay. So as I was about to write, going back to the overseas healthcare issue, above and beyond getting a court order forcing the employer to actually do something to fix it, is there any way for PASO and other bargaining agents involved in the issue to ask, if not demand, for some kind of forensic investigation to figure out why and how that new contract came to be, having been posted to US in the last 5 years, where for the first 4 of those 5 years, I benefited from direct billing, and it was like magic, literally getting healthcare, and overnight it turned into a complete nightmare. And when we asked why, it was, oh, well, it just happened. Like, there has to be more than, like, why was this kind of RFP put out without apparently any input from the actual parties involved?
I mean, those are questions that will come up in the litigation. You know, when they have to defend themselves and say why they will or they won't be doing this, those are the kinds of questions that our legal team will be asking in discovery. We're also going to sit down and talk about, you know, what we can ATIP and what we can try and get that way. But honestly, our goal with this mandamus writ is to get a solution that gets people working health insurance as quickly as possible, you know, however they need to do it, and solving like why they are so incompetent in government, like how they can have an army of people at Treasury Board and at, you know, public services PSPC, where they do all the contracting and still have missed so many things in a contract. I mean, that I would like to know as a taxpayer, but I kind of feel like that's the employer's problem to figure out. You know, that's the employer that needs to, you know, needs to sort that out and get its, you know, poop in a group and figure out like why this is not working. I don't want us to go, I mean, for the purposes of this thing, we are very focused on, we don't care what's behind it, what you are doing and behind it, but we want a solution for our members now. So we're focused very narrowly on where this intersects with you guys. And the rest of it in behind that big iceberg, they're good questions, it's fascinating, but like it's not going to help you guys if we get somebody at PSPC fired. You know, like we may want to see that, you know, like the public may want to see that, you know, the politicians who are investigating, I mean, there's a parliamentary committee on this, you know, on the healthcare plan in general. They may want to see some of that, but that's not our focus in this particular legal action. So, but good points, and we'll keep you posted about what we find out. Anybody, any other questions, comments? So I seconded that. You're welcome. I seconded, and I thought I saw Kale, were you willing, or sorry, I moved and Kale, were you willing to second? Okay, that was, are there any objections? Thanks, Kale. Are there any objections to adopting the priorities and the direction on page 4 to 6 of the strategic plan document? Going once, going twice. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. The plan is adopted. Now we have questions from the reports, the insurance report, the professional committee report, bout de papier. One thing, while you have a chance to think of your questions, that I wanted to highlight for you, I didn't really get into it in my other thing, but one thing we want to do is try to explore some more partnerships, you know, see if we can leverage working with other organizations and share logistics and, you know, work more with our broader community as well. So one of the things we're going to do, I just got authorization from the executive committee to explore a mentorship initiative with the Canadian International Council. So they have people interested in international careers from all over Canada. they're looking for mentors who are in the sort of mid-career and, later career stage. And they're very interested in having PAFSO members serving as mentors. So if you're interested at all in that, drop a line to the office, info@pafso.com, and I'll add you to the list to follow up when we get there. The other thing, and this was my ask in when they approached me with the idea of a partnership, was they had originally thought about it just as an initiative with students. And I said, well, we would really like to do something with early career professionals, because I feel like a lot of the people who started in the last, say, 3 years have kind of missed out on a lot of the informal stuff that we got. When I started and we were all in the office, and you'd hear everyone's stories, and you'd overhear your colleagues on the phone and how they handled things, and you learn a lot that way, just by connecting with colleagues like that. So they agreed, and so we are going to open this mentorship program. Will be open to PAFSO members, probably we'll probably cap it at 3 years in, and others in other international careers also up to 3 years in, to connect with mentors. And our hope is that if you're a senior mentee, in this program for a couple years, that maybe when you're done, you might consider becoming a mentor for someone else who's interested. So I think that should be a really good initiative. And like I say, CIC has a lot of reach across Canada. No, it will be across Canada. I see Kale's question. So yeah, the idea is, I think we'll probably, sort of stand it up initially in the NCR, just because that's where all the organizers are located. But the idea is that it would be across Canada. And any comments, questions, anything about the insurance report, professional committee report, bout de papier? I hope you're all enjoying the new bout de papier. More information be provided on PIMI. I'm not sure. I believe William is not here. Because he's now in Ankara, and the time zone is a little bit hostile to him. But there is information on PIMI on the PAFSO website. It's going strong. The last count I saw, I think they had 37 mentors and a few more mentees. Some people, some mentors have more than one mentee. And the group is meeting, people are meeting regularly, talking about different issues. The mentors all did their cultural Indigenous mentorship training, how to mentor in accordance with Indigenous principles, which was really useful. And I think everybody is finding it a pretty useful and positive experience. So we intend to keep it going, as long as there is interest, and perhaps even look at expanding, to other groups that have traditionally, perhaps not been represented as well as they should be in the Foreign Service. Although, we're going to look at how we connect this up with the CIC initiative as well. Samantha, I don't know if that answers your question. I'm sorry William is not here. He could give some more on the latest thing. I hope everybody's been enjoying their bout de papier in the electronic version, and noticing that we're on a much more regular publication schedule, thanks to Lillian and Adam and Eric and the team, and thanks to all of you who are contributing. And just a reminder that we are now paying for contributions. So, it's a chance to earn a little bit of cash. Also sort of professionalizes the whole thing, because once people have signed a contract to be paid, they're less inclined to get busy and say it's on there. Bout de Papier has its own website, boutdepapier.ca. As someone is asking where we can read it. You can also link to it through the pafso.com website. And if you are on our mailing list, which you should be, if you're not, send an email to info@pafso.com. You're on your mailing list and you opt in, you can get the electronic version of Boo delivered direct to your mailbox. Anybody else? Any questions, comments? Is there no more calendar? No more calendar in the photo contest? No, we ended the photo contest because, I mean, we did have a very dedicated group of people who were submitting photos, but it was only about the same 8 people. And we got a lot of feedback that, not everybody wanted the calendars. Some people thought, their carbon footprint was too heavy. So we decided to press pause on the calendar. And it's something that we might look at as part of the 60th anniversary, whether we should revisit that. But it's one of these things, right? It's hard because you have a dedicated group of people who want to do it, but if it's, if there isn't broad interest across the membership, it's hard for us to justify using the time on it. And the expense on it. But I always really like the photos. So I think that was the photo contest was actually, not to toot my own horn, it was my initiative back in 2009 when I was president, because I wanted to do a calendar. Excuse me. And we knew we had a lot of people who were avid photographers, so we thought that would be a good way of getting that going. Any more questions? Anything else anybody wants to raise? Marty, maybe if this is the end and I'm not seeing any issues, I will say thank you to everybody. Liam says, thanks for organizing. Yay. Thank you to Marty for organizing, and Bert for organizing, and Allison. They're the ones who really did everything. And cheers to everyone. Maybe what I'll do is I will ask someone, I will move to adjourn. I'll make that easy. And then I'll ask someone else to second. But then if you like, I'll ask Marty to turn off the recording. Oh, reminder, don't forget about the Randy Orr Memorial presentation. It'll start at 5:45 on the same link, and I'll be back with a glass of wine. But maybe I will ask Marty to turn off the recording, and just to give everybody a chance to what am I trying to say? To raise anything, if you want to raise anything without being recorded, basically. So I move to adjourn. Somebody willing to second? Bueller.
I can second.
Who is that?
Liam.
Liam? Okay, thanks, Liam. Liam Kirkpatrick seconds. And anyone opposed? No? Okay, thanks. So Marty, could you turn off the recording? Thanks. So we're now, thank you, everybody. We are now